my fellow comic book collectors, it's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and these are the hottest Golden Age comics of the week. Merry Christmas to everyone that is watching. Tomorrow is Christmas. So this is a new, like the Christmas Eve special edition. I don't know what this is, but we're going to get into the hottest comics of the week. First is number 10. And it is Crime Suspense Stories number 22 from EC Comics, 1954. It's a Johnny Craig cover, and it's a classic cover. This is, to me, one of the key books of the Golden Age. It is actually one of the biggest books of the Golden Age because it is the book that ended the Golden Age. It is the book that actually killed the Golden Age. It is this classic decapitation cover. You got the guy holding the girl's head, and axe in the other hand, the body on the floor. It's got that really gruesome cover. Now, this book was used in the Senate hearings to basically end the Golden Age. Like, after this one, there was a huge, after they showed this, and William Gaines basically said, "Oh, it's done tastefully," which is the worst thing to say. There was huge write-ups about it in the papers, and there was demands for comics to be completely censored, completely destroyed, and they had to do something about it, so they came up with the Comic Code Authority. And this one book was pivotal to ending the Golden Age of comics. So yeah, major book, one that I personally really love. And this was a pretty interesting sale. This was a 3.5 that sold, and it sold for $4,800. Now that's a steal, believe it or not. That sounds like a lot of money, but that's actually a steal for this major book. Now, a year ago, you could have picked this book up all year long for about $3,800, maybe even $3,300 at the beginning of last year. But this book had really gotten hot this year. And only 2 days before this $4,800 sale, there was a sale for $6,300. So just 2 days earlier, and that was an eBay sale. So this was a Heritage auction sale for $4,800. And just literally 2 days before, it had set a record of $6,300. So whoever got it for the $4,800 got a steal. That's a great price for this book. Now, this book is not that rare. EC books have a huge demand for them, but there's a lot of them. So there's 423 of these on the census, and 383 of them are universal blue labels. So just something to be aware of. There's a lot of those books out there. Number 9 on the list is The Spirit, number 22. This is from Quality Comics. It is a Will Eisner cover. It's a classic cover. It's a femme fatale cover. And it was actually another book that was cited in the New York Legislature Committee where they were investigating comics. So another historically significant book. And they thought it was a bit too sexual or too much for kids. So it's an interesting book for that reason. So it's a classic femme fatale cover. It's one of Will Eisner's most famous covers or most desired covers. And because of that, we had a pretty big sale for this book. This was a 0.5 that sold in a green label. So 0.5 green label for $960. Now, that is a pretty high price because if you look at this is the only sale for a 0.5 green label. So, and there was no other 0.5 blue label even that sold. So hard to really determine what the fair market value for a 0.5 green label is. But we can look at the 1.5 that sold recently for $1,500 in October of 2023. So based on that, you would expect a 0.5 green label to sell for around $500. So this is about double of what you would expect it to sell for. Okay, so really great price that this book got. And it's just a classic cover. People love it because it's just really well drawn, femme fatale, and it's just the way the blue's done. It's just really well done. There's 108 of these on the census, and 97 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 8 on the list is Daring Comics number 11. This is from Timely, 1945. It's an Alex Schomburg cover, and it's a World War II cover where you have these giant versions of Submariner, and he's like destroying a big bridge with all these German tanks crossing and stuff like that. And you have like the Human Torch swooping down, which is he's also large. And a lot of the time in the Golden Age, they would make the superheroes larger than life. And that is very true in this one. You got, as I said, with Submariners really ripping apart the bridge as this weird giant guy, it's larger than life. Just a very cool cover, classic Alex Schomburg cover, World War II cover. So lots of things going for this book. This was a 4.5 that sold. It was a CBCS copy, though, not a CGC copy. And it sold for $1,080. Now, this is the only sale for a CBCS version at this grade, but this is a low sale. Now, typically what happens is there is a difference between CGC and CBCS. Generally, CBCS books go for anywhere from 20 to 30% lower than CGC copies. And like a CGC in the same grade, so a CGC version of the same book, same grade, goes for around $1,500. The last sale was in November of 2023. So just last month, there was a $1,500 sale. So about 50% more in that different label. So this is kind of one of those ones where it's hard to say what the fair price would be, but I think this was a bit of a steal in a way, just because the difference between CBCS and CGC is really negligible. Like usually the grades kind of transfer, they're pretty much the same. And what I would recommend, if you were the one that bought this book, crack it out and resubmit it. You probably get the same grade from CGC, but just by doing that, you've increased the value by $500. It's kind of crazy. There are 58 of these on the census, and 55 of them are Universal Blue Labels. What do you think, though? So should CBCS books get that much less than a CGC version? I'd love to hear people's opinion on it. I don't care. I just like to have the book, and if I can get a deal, though, I'll take advantage of it. Number 7 on the list is Flash Comics number 17. This is from DC Comics, 1941. It is a Hawkman cover, and he's like I'm not sure if he's repairing the plane or he's like trying to help this plane. But it is also the last appearance of Cliff Cornwall, who is a pilot. And it's a Sheldon Moldoff cover. Now, this was a 6.0 that sold, and it sold for $1,080, which is a reasonably strong sale. The previous record for this book was set back in November of 2019 for $930. This book doesn't have like that really like high curve for increasing in price. It's just one of those ones that steadily increases over time, and this is kind of within that. It's not a major key in any way. There are 31 of these on the census, and 28 of them are Universal Blue Labels. But I'm a Hawkman fan. I just like seeing Hawkman on the cover like that. I think he looks cool. Okay, number 6 on the list is Teenage Romances number 33. This is St. John Publications from 1953. It's a Matt Baker cover, and it's a cool one. You got this baseball player and this cute blonde, and they're talking about how they're going to sneak out after the game, and I'm not sure if they're going to elope or what's going on, but they're going to sneak out, and it's kind of a cute cover. Great Matt Baker covers, and these Matt Baker books have been so hot lately, just crazy prices for them. This was an interesting one because it was a 4.0 restored copy, and it was C1. C1 means that it's amateur restoration, so not like professional restoration. It's the lowest version of restoration. Usually it's the hardest to remove as well, because generally with professional restoration, they make it a little easier to remove the restoration. But this is amateur color touch restoration. So probably the colors bled through the actual cover. Now this was a $1,200 sale, which is a very strong sale for restored grade. Typically, in a blue label, if it's a blue label, same grade, there was a sale for in February of 2023 for $1,350.49. So this is almost the same as that blue label price. Now this is the only restored copy that has sold in this grade, so we don't know typically how these restored copies fare comparatively, but generally what you do is the rule of thumb in this grade, you would expect it to sell for about 60% of that blue label. 60, maybe 70 on a good day. But usually when it's lower grade, you get a little bit more. Higher grades, you get a little less. But in a 4.0, it's kind of in between. So you're looking at around 60%. So I would have expected this book to sell for around $1,000, and it sold for $1,200. So a very strong sale. There was only 22 of these on the census, and 20 of them are universal blue labels. So it's a rare book. People jump at it when they can get it. So interesting book. Number 5 on the list is Crack Comics #1. This is from Quality Comics, 1940. It is the first appearance of the Black Condor, and its origin of Madame Fatale and Red Torpedo. Actually features the clock on the cover. So kind of a cool book. This one was a 4.0 that sold, and it sold for $1,260, which is a little bit down from the previous records that this book has sold for. It previously sold for, in March of 2023, for $1,320. So it's a little bit down, not a huge decline for this book, but just a little bit of a drop. The reason I put this one on the list was I was actually watching an Instagram claim sale for charity. There was a charity claim sale on Instagram, and they were basically auctioning this one off for charity. All the money that they would get for it, they would give to the charity, rather than, they basically donated the book and all the money went to charity. So I thought it was kind of interesting. And this book, raised some money for charity. There are 22 of these on the census, and 19 of them are universal blue labels. Number 4 on the list is Junior #11. This is from Fox Feature Syndicate, 1948. It is an Al Feldstein cover, and it's one of my favorite Al Feldstein covers. I really like this one. It's the girls falling on the ice, and lots of legs showing, and just a great winter cover. You see the boyfriend in the background. He's like going to have snow fall on his head as he's laughing at the girl. So just kind of great irony there. And just a really cool good girl art cover. L. Feldstein, just so you know, in this time period, he did everything for the comic. He would write the book, he would do the cover, and all the interior art. So these books actually had really great interior art. If you like good girl art, Junior and Sunny are the two of the best good girl art comics of all time. So definitely one that good girl art collectors would chase after. This is a really cool comic. This was a 5.5 that sold, and it sold for $1,680. The previous record for this book was set back in July of 2020, only 3 years ago, basically, for $840. So it's basically doubled in 3 years. So really great return on investment on this one. And it's just such a classic good girl art comic. As I said, the interiors are actually really good for these junior comics. So there are 22 of these on the census, and 21 of them are universal blue labels. Number 3 on the list is Thrilling Comics number 38. This is from Better Publications, 1943. It's another Alex Schomburg cover, and it's a really crazy World War II cover. It is, one of the cool things with Alex Schomburg is he would take things to the next level. This is like an artillery cannon or whatever it's called, and you got this woman strapped to the end of it, like in bondage, basically to the end of the cannon, and she's, you got all these Nazis ready to, fire up this cannon, and you got Doc Samson basically saving her from certain death. Just a really cool comic. It's incredibly rare. It's a Gerber 7. So just a really great Alex Schomburg comic. Thrilling Comics number 38. This was a 4.5 that sold, and it sold for $1,800. This is the only sale in this grade, so I don't really have a comparative for is this a great sale or not, but I do have the 3.5 that we can kind of compare it with, which sold in March of 2023 for $1,242, which would kind of make you think that the 4.5 would go for around $1,600. So this is about $200 more than what you would have expected it to go for. So a strong sale for this book. There are 25 of these on the census, and 22 of them are Universal Blue Labels. Number 2 on the list is Famous Funnies number 209. This is from Eastern Color, 1953. It is a Frank Frazetta cover, and it's actually Frank Frazetta's first cover in this title. And it actually marked a very major turning point for Famous Funnies, because the next few issues of Famous Funnies had these great Frank Frazetta covers and are highly sought after by collectors. They're basically, if you look at the Famous Bunnies run, it's those books that the Frank Frazetta covers that are the big keys of the series. Now, this one also has topless women panels inside. It's basically this weird story about a mermaid, and she's topless, but she's not really a mermaid, and she's just luring one of the characters into a trap, basically. It's kind of a cute little story. They don't really show anything, but it is always denoted as topless woman panels, so that adds a little bit of extra collectability to this book. This was a 7.0 that sold, and it sold for $2,280, so $2,280, big sale. The previous record for this book was set back in February of 2019 for $1,310, so almost double what it had sold for in the past. Now, I was trying to determine how much has this book really risen since then. Like, that's 4 years ago. There was a 6.0 that sold in 2021 that sold for $1,920. So 7.0, it's kind of a little bit low. There was actually a 7.5 that sold in April of this year for $3,000. So this 7.0, maybe a little low. I would have thought, you would expect, just based on what the 7.5 sold for, this one would sell for around $2,700, and it was $2,200. So a little bit lower than what you would expect. Part of the reason these books actually kind of got hot during COVID. I don't know why, but there was a real drive for these books, for these Frank Frazetta covers during COVID, and they had kind of gotten a little bit heated during that point, during that time period, and now they've kind of slowed down a little bit. So still a strong sale for this book. As I said, it's a new record, but not as high as you would have expected. So there's 163 of these on the census, and 146 of them are Universal Blue Labels. The last one on the book list, this is number 1, is Menace number 5. This is from Atlas Comics, 1953. It is a Bill Everett cover, and it is the very first zombie. Now, this is, you probably say, well, there must have been zombies before this book. Well, there were. The Dead Who Walk actually appeared before this book. but they weren't referred to as zombies. So this is a zombie first appearance, and he's on the cover. And so the first zombie. So kind of an interesting factoid about this book. This is a book that sold in a 4.0, and it sold for $2,880. Now that's a pretty strong sale, because the last record for this book, and this book doesn't come up very often, so you got to give it a bit of a caveat there, but the last sale for this book was back in 2015 for $626. So it, has tripled, quadrupled, I guess quadrupled actually, in that time period. So in 9 years, or a little bit less than 9 years, 8 years, it has quadrupled in price. So that's pretty strong sale. There was a 4.5 that sold this year, actually not this year, in 2019 for $3,360. So $3,360, and that was in 2019. So this is weaker than that 4.5 sale, but really strong for its price in grade. It just shows that this book has kind of gotten fairly hot for the fact that it is the first zombie appearance. Bill Everett created him, actually. So this is a cool book, great pre-code horror book, and it's Atlas, which is actually Marvel Comics. So yeah, just an interesting one. There are 71 of these on the census, and 65 of them are Universal Blue Labels. So those are the top comics of the week. I hope you enjoyed this list. I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And thanks again for watching, and thanks again for joining me on this journey for 2023. Thanks again. Bye for now.